Hello out there, and today we've got a fun one because, as you can tell, guys, we have a Gerber knife in front of the camera today, and that has not happened often on this channel. It's been a long time since I've gotten a new Gerber to the collection, and there's a reason for that. You know, I sort of distanced myself from them. I promised that I would stop buying Gerbers 5 or 6 years ago, long before I started this channel. You know, I just gave up on the company and just moved on from them, and I've never gone back. You know, I've never gotten or purchased any new Gerbers since that happened, and this knife has sort of fallen into my lap by a twist of fate, and we're going to talk about it today because I like it, you know, and that is probably a little bit of a surprise to some people who know my feelings about the company, but even though I've written the company off as a whole, I'm not thinking that everything that they release is crap. I just have no real awareness towards it and don't pay attention to them. And the reason for that, guys, if you're just getting caught up now, is that I had a number of low quality products and bad customer service from them years and years ago. I made a video about it. I'll link to that down below. It's probably one of the most viewed videos I've ever made. It's easily the most disliked video I've ever made. And honestly, guys, I really don't care for the video either. I don't care for it myself. I think I come off as like whiny and just complaining the whole time. And it's not really the best like first impression for people to get of this channel if, you know, that's the first video of mine that they find. But I've always left it up because the content of the video, it's true. What happened, and I like having that information out there. The way I represent myself in that video, not really my favorite, but, you know, like, that doesn't really matter as much as the actual content that's being discussed. And so for that reason, that video's out there. People are still commenting on it regularly and giving their 2 cents. And I got into this situation here where my buddy Blade Collector 7 sent me a bunch of knives, sent me a Rat 1, he sent me a brand new Kershaw Scallion, which is a great blade that I haven't had in a long time, a couple other things, and he also just sent me this Gerber Obsidian. And so I get this Gerber, the first Gerber to come into my hands in years, and what am I going to do with this thing? You know, I'm just like, oh gosh, am I going to review this? Am I going to even like talk about it on the channel? Is it going to suck? And if it had sucked, we wouldn't be talking about it today. I would have just been like, there's a crappy Gerber, moving on, you know? But the thing is, I like this knife. And so I want to talk about it a little bit. I like it overall. There are a lot of things about it, and you can see this clip. There are a lot of things about it that I don't care for. And it has some of the telltale kind of Gerber, like, shortcuts and oddities and things that I just don't care for that I used to see them do on the brand, sure. But as a whole, I feel like it's a pretty good model. And it's a good design, and it does a couple things really well. And so, yeah, this is going to be a Gerber review. Nothing is changing with my mindset and philosophy. I'm not going to start buying Gerber knives. Like, that is not going to happen. The principles aren't being bent by any means, but, you know, this was sent to me, it's in my hands, and I'm going to be truthful about it from my perspective. And in most videos, when I do a review, I start at the tip, I talk about the steel and the blade, and I work my way back. And in this video, I'm going to just do it the other way around, sort of talking about what I don't like and then what I like. And the reason for that is that I want you guys to understand how the things that I like, how much weight those have, and how much those can balance out the negatives, especially in a knife like this, where I already have this like predisposition to not like it because of the name on it, right? So the things that it does well enough to just sort of push aside the things that I don't care for. So let's talk about what I don't care for first. What I don't care for on this knife. The steel, I don't know the steel type. I looked it up. I don't think it's listed anywhere. Maybe it's a 7CR, but it's a CR something. You know, so Chinese, low quality, going to be super soft. You're going to have to sharpen it up. I've come to terms with that with most of my other knives, so that's not really a big detriment here. But I do not care for the bead blast on the finish. Like, this is not going to hold up. It already isn't holding up. This wasn't new to me, by the way, so like this is not a new knife, so don't expect it to look like that. But it is going to rust. It is going to like just have some issues. The bead blast, not really my favorite thing. The safety, so there's a safety. It's neat, I guess, in regard that like people do it, but it's completely unnecessary. And so I don't really understand. CRKT used to do this on knives. And I don't know. I mean, if you build a locking mechanism that works, you shouldn't need a secondary safety. That's sort of my take on it. Like, there's no point. If your locking mechanism is solid, why have a safety as well? Especially for a manual knife like this. So that's that. All right. Again, not a huge detractor. I just don't care for it. Other thing I don't care for, the action isn't particularly good. So on thumb studs, flicks out just fine. But, I mean, it's smooth, but it's not going to be drop shotty. You shouldn't expect it to be just, as a budget knife. But, I mean, that is sort of the way that it is. Wish this was a little bit better. And then the other thing I really don't care for with this knife is the clip. Clip sucks. I don't know. I don't know what else they could have done or how they could have done it. I also don't really care for when you have a clip. Sorry, moving it around a lot. When you have a clip that blocks the access to like the pivot. So if you're going to start taking the knife apart, like, you have to take the clip off first. I don't know. It just seems like dumb and sort of irritating to do it that way. But again, all these are just nuisance kind of things. They're not huge issues. No like structural integrity kind of problems. The centering is off. They're getting a free pass on this one because this is a used knife and I don't know like what this has gone through or any of that kind of stuff. All right. So let's talk about the things about this knife at this point that I actually enjoy and the things that make me like the knife and think that it's a good overall blade. Number one, it feels good in hand. It's a comfortable knife. This is a plastic scale and like Zytel, I think it's not a particularly good plastic scale either, but it's not slick. It doesn't give you a lot of traction, but just the way that the knife fits in the hand naturally is good. So it's comfortable. The spine is super thin up here, which some people might think is like a sharpness, but I don't know. For me, because it's so thin, you can sort of dig in a little bit and it's not going to create sharpness. So it actually helps lock the blade in, I think, more than maybe a thicker spine up here would on this swedge. All right. I do really like the blade shape. I like just the overall design and the lines. So that's definitely good. The manual button lock. This is the big win of the knife, guys, because my biggest issue with Gerbers was always lock movement. Lock movement and stability, and this knife has none of those problems. And we've talked about button locks on the channel before, and the issue that I have with a lot of them is that, the manual ones, they do develop like up and down movement. And it's not really a security thing, it's just like a preference thing. But this one doesn't even have that. I mean, this is a solid knife. It is a solid knife, and with the lockup being my biggest issue with Gerber from the past, like the fact that this is good is the biggest thing to push it forward into the positive category with this. So we have that. We have the good lockup, the good overall design, and then we get into stuff like this, these tools. I don't really care for stuff like this on knives. I like my knife to be a knife. If I'm going to have tools, like my knife is never going to replace a set of tools, right? And a multi-tool is never going to replace a dedicated knife. So for me personally, I'd rather keep them separate. Now, I don't know if in a pinch or if, it's a light project and you don't have a screwdriver on you, would you maybe want something like this? Sure, it could be helpful, and you have the bottle opener and all that kind of stuff. So like I can see how there's some like utilitarian aspect to it. It's just not the way that I carry stuff. That said, this knife, as far as design goes and execution of these secondary tools, does it as well as any other that I've ever seen. The problems that I always have are that you have the tools dug into the side of a scale, or you have them like coming up in a weird way, or they're difficult to access, or they're difficult to open and close. I'm thinking about like the Kershaw Select Fire, or for me, the Kershaw Shuffle. I personally didn't like the way that like bottle opener curved. It didn't work for me. CRKT has had a couple things where like they had additional tools in knives, and I didn't care for those. There was one, and if somebody remembers the name of the model, there was one knife that had like, it was, I feel like it had like assisted, like a spring opening, like screwdriver on the back, and stuff like that. It just doesn't seem to make sense. But what works with this is when you open this up and it locks in, I mean, it's not locking, but it closes in. It's comfortable. Like, that's comfortable. Like, this is going to be comfortable to use. So I feel like it's well thought out and it's a good design and they executed it well in that regard. So if you are someone who likes that kind of tool, then I think you're in a good position to pick this one up. And while, again, as far as like my history with the company goes, like, that's not going to change. I'm not going to ever be in a situation where I start pouring money into Gerbers again. It just is not going to happen. I could tell you guys that I like this knife. And I don't know if it's going to get use or carry or anything like that, but I like it. So take that for what you will. Hopefully the video sort of gave you a little bit more of an understanding about my perspective when it comes to Gerber and how, you know, even though I'm completely distanced from, you know, supporting them financially, like, you know, I'm not going to call everything they do crap. I do sort of poke fun at them sometimes, but I don't know what's going on with the company. And I know this isn't even a new model, so who knows what they're doing now and how good quality that is. You'll have to find that out somewhere else. But for me and for today, this knife, this gift from my buddy Blade Collector 7 is a welcome surprise, because when I saw Gerber, I was expecting to hate it, and it sort of made me just think about things a little bit more and appreciate things for what they are. So what are your thoughts on it, guys? What are your thoughts on Gerber? What are your thoughts on this blade or having a knife with multi-tools built in? Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and take care. I will talk with you soon.